Hey there, Booksters. I hope you're having a great day. And in today's video, I wanted to take a look at relationships. I want to put that underneath like a microscope and really look at that and uncover, what is the purpose of a relationship? Why do we always strive to be in relationships? Or why is it that if you're not in a relationship right now, why aren't you in one? Is that okay? Can you function without a relationship? Is it going to hurt you if you're not in a relationship? Also, if you're not in a relationship, why? Is it because it's like, yeah, this is what I want to do. Like, I don't want a relationship. I don't want to be in one. Or could there maybe be some fears, just saying, that might be holding you back and that you're not even aware of? It could be in your subconscious. So let's take a look at all of that in today's video. Hi there, and welcome to the Booksters Club, where we find daily inspiration from the books you love. Today's featured book is Daring Greatly by Brené Brown, and today's inspirational thought comes to us on page number 53. It says, "Going it alone is a value we hold in high esteem in our culture, ironically, even when it comes to cultivating connection. I get the appeal. I have that rugged individualism in my DNA. In fact, one of my favorite breakup, kick-ass, no one can hurt me songs is Whitesnake's Here I Go Again. If you're a person of a certain age, I'd put money down that you've rolled down the window and defiantly sung, 'Here I go again on my own, like a drifter I was born to walk alone.' If Whitesnake isn't your cup of tea, there are bootstrapping anthems in every imaginable genre. In reality, walking alone can feel miserable and depressing, but we admire the strength it conveys, and going it alone is revered in our culture." Going it alone is absolutely revered in our culture. There's something about it that, we think of as strength. Wow, that person doesn't need anybody, or I don't need anybody. I can do this, all on my own. And there's, I'm not dependent on somebody else. That's something that we value in other people and in ourselves. So I really wanted to take a look at, the other end of the spectrum. What happens when we don't have a relationship? What is a relationship? It doesn't always necessarily have to be an intimate relationship with a partner. See, a relationship is just your connection that you have with someone else. And in life, we weren't born in an egg, dropped in the middle of nowhere, and then learn how to function on our own and learn things and grow all on our own. We needed relationships. Your mother, your father, your brother, your sister, all of those relationships actually helped you grow and develop as a small child into an adult. And then also, what happens when social isolation is, taken to the extreme? I wanted to look at the extreme to see if this is a true principle, if relationships are not important at all, what happens when you completely cut off relationships? What happens when you completely cut off connection? Let's look at the extreme to see if, that is a theory that really should be adopted. And so there's an article called The Risk of Social Isolation by American Psychological, and I wanted to share what they showed as the actual physical detriment of social isolation, and that leads to depression, poor sleep quality, impaired executive functions, accelerated cognitive decline, poor cardiovascular functions, and impaired immunity. So there are actual physical harm. There's actual physical harm that can happen when we socially isolate for long periods of time. We know that social connection is important, that relationships that we have with others are important, and the depth of our connection is also important. It takes vulnerability, right? So what actually happens when we look at relationships and think, I don't need it, I don't want it even, I can do this life all by myself, I don't want to be in a relationship, I don't need connection with other people, whether they be intimate or not? What is that in us? Is there something that could be going on underlying in our subconscious? So I really wanted to look at that and see, maybe there is something kind of holding us back from that connection now that we know that connection is important and it serves a purpose. Relationships have a function. So if there are some reasons in our subconscious that are keeping us from that, I really wanted to take a look at that. And there's, in your subconscious, there are fears, and fears are a huge driving force to call you to action that exists in your subconscious. So here's a couple of fears that might be keeping you from connecting in a relationship. One fear that we have that might keep us going it alone is the fear of looking weak. And if you were, when you were small, if you were ever told like, oh, you're so reliable, you're so dependable, you could really kind of like take on that like label and like, yeah, I'm always reliable, I'm always dependable, I don't need to rely on anybody else, everyone can always depend on me, and I don't ever need to do that for, or I don't ever need somebody else to come and help me or come and fix things for me. And a relationship sometimes is that, where you're, you know, kind of given and taken. And if you are afraid that that might show up in a relationship, or that that might be a part of the dynamic of a relationship, that might keep you from connecting and having that relationship with others, because, you know, it's just, I gotta be strong all the time. The next fear is to be afraid of being hurt, the fear of losing at love again. If you have loved and lost, that is painful. And so sometimes what can happen is your defense mechanism is, if I don't love again, I won't hurt again. And totally understandable. It is no fun going through losing at love and, you know, being vulnerable and putting yourself out there and not being loved. It's really painful. But at some point, you know, it's going to outweigh the fact that now you're not connecting with anybody. Now you're not having a relationship. Now you're not in a relationship because you're afraid of being hurt. And at some point, I think that it's going to have to show up that the gain outweighs the pain. And oh wow, that rhymed. That should be like on a t-shirt or something. The gain outweighs the pain. And if that is the case, you know, where you're starting to see the pain is kind of like just taking over your life, and now you're not experiencing that kind of relationship and you wish you did, and you don't know why. Maybe that's why. Maybe you're afraid that you're going to get hurt again. But in the end, you know, to feel love, to feel connection, it's a function that we all need and want. It's worth the pain. Another fear is the fear of being rejected. And in this case, that's where somebody will, you know, reject others first before they get rejected, because being rejected is super painful. And I relate to this. Like I said, not all relationships are intimate, but they can, you know, be mother, father, brother, sister, all that stuff, right? So if you were ever in a relationship and that connection, you felt that you were rejected, oh man, that is really painful. It's really hard to overcome, because now you're not validated. You don't feel that you're accepted, right? And so when you're in a relationship with someone for a really long time, you can only pretend so long. Eventually, they're going to see the real you, who you really are, flaws and all. And to recognize that even when you have flaws, you know, even when you're not being perfect, that somebody still loves and accepts you, oh my gosh, that's a great level of connection that you can have with someone. And man, is that painful when you expect that person, because of who they are in the relationship, you know, mother, father, brother, sister, like I said, to really accept you for who you are. Like, these are the people that should accept you, and they don't. Ooh, man, that's really painful. And so on this level, if you're experiencing that, you know, I relate. That's a really terrible pain. You don't feel validated as a human being. But recognizing that needs to be addressed with that person. You don't, or you shouldn't let that spill over into your current life, because that's what's going to wind up happening. If you don't address it with that person, well, then you're going to pass the buck on, right? You're not going to accept your children. You're going to have a hard time with your children. You're going to start sending that energy down the line. Or with your partner, you're going to start sending that energy on down the line. Or you're not going to be in a relationship, period, because you are afraid of being rejected. And so it's going to keep you from being in a relationship. It's going to keep you from being happy. It's going to keep you from growing, because now you're afraid of that fear. When in reality, what we should do is we should either address it with that person and let them know, hey, you rejected me, I totally felt it. Or sometimes you're not going to get resolution from that other side of the coin. And the real way of dealing with it is through vulnerability, right? So even though you've been hurt, you open yourself up again. Even though you've been rejected, you ask others to accept you. And that's how you start fresh and start clean in all the relationships that you have, intimate and not intimate, with your children, with other people. That's how you start clean, and that's where vulnerability comes to kind of stop the cycle. When you are vulnerable, that's how you stop the cycle. You say, despite whatever happened, I'm not going to continue to play a part and the part of the victim in that cycle. I'm just going to be vulnerable. I'm going to start fresh. I'm going to allow others to accept me. If they do, wow, it's a great experience. It's rewarding. If they don't, it's painful, but that's how you stop the cycle. Relationships have an important function and purpose. And in my opinion, it is so that we can grow and we can evolve. Relationships really mirror back to us exactly what we need to be fixed. And they do it in such an amazing way. I mean, if you were to kind of sit in a room and go, okay, what's wrong with me? And what do I need to work on? And what's my problem? And how can I fix that? Oh my gosh, I feel like you would go absolutely crazy. But when you're in a relationship with someone, it kind of flows naturally. You get in in an argument with someone, and then you kind of like by yourself, and you're thinking, man, why did I blow up like that? What was that? Why did I do that? And through that process of apologizing, like, man, okay, maybe I shouldn't have done that. I don't know why I did that. You start to uncover things about yourself that needs growth, that needs evolution, that is the next step in who you are as a person. And like I said, it's just easier to do that with someone else than kind of sit in a room by yourself and go stir crazy. And there is an evolution in relationships that I believe we engage in and don't even notice that that's exactly what's going on. So first, we are attracted to someone and there's something about them that we really like. And in most cases, it's something opposite of us, right? So for an example, if you're an introvert, you're really quiet, you're shy, you could see someone that's an extrovert and they're kind of getting after life and loving life, and you could think, wow, I love that about that person. Oh my gosh, I'm so attracted to that. And it creates this initial attraction when you start a relationship with someone, because man, I love that about that person. And then what happens is it completes us, right? So we think to ourselves, not us the individual, us the two people. We become this like amalgamation of one kind of blob of a person where you can't really tell where one person starts and the other person ends, and you feel like that person completes you. Oh, you complete me. And in reality, they are completing the two of you because they're the one side of your other half. But really, in reality, you're two halves kind of living off of each other like parasites. Maybe that's not the best word to describe it, but you're two halves kind of needing each other all the time, because that's what creates this whole. And then what starts happening is you start to resent that in the other person, because your soul, the essence of who you are, whatever you want to call it, wants to be whole. You've called that person in to show you what you need to make you whole. And so you start to think, really, there's a reason why you're an introvert. There was a reason why, you aren't loud and flamboyant. And I don't mean there's a reason like, that I just don't do that. No, there's a deeper reason. Why aren't you comfortable with being, speaking your mind? Maybe there's a fear that you have, or something happened in your childhood where you're like, oh, I'm afraid to look stupid in public, or I'm afraid to, call attention to myself. And so that's like an insecurity, something that's missing from your whole self. It's like a big hole, a gap. And so that gap is now being brought to your awareness, because now you're just like attacking that other person. Wow, oh my gosh, you're so embarrassing. Like, why do you have to do that in public? Oh, why do you have to be so loud? And then you start to like resent that in the other person, even though that's what attracted you in the first place. And so now you're starting to see this is the part of you that you need addressing. And so if that's you right now in a relationship where you're like, I can't stand this in someone and I used to love it, that's where you are. You're just seeing that is something within you that needs fostering, that needs being looked at, that needs growth to make you a whole person. And what's great is when you become a whole person, it inspires the other person to do the same thing, because now there's not this song and dance between the two of you and they're kind of left flailing on their own, but it inspires them. They see you being a whole person, and now they want to be a whole person, and they want to start, leveling themselves off and working on themselves, because light attracts light. And then you're two whole interdependent people functioning on your own and living a life of synergy where you're able to accomplish twice as much, do twice as much, and do it with the connection of having a relationship with someone where you're equal. And I really believe that that is the true function of relationships. So if you had any type of value in this video where any of those fears kind of showed up for you and you're like, wow, my gosh, I might be withholding myself from a relationship because of that fear, please, I would love to know in the comments if one of any of those fears was something that brought something to your attention. If the way out of this, if I helped at all, if you found value, I would love to hear about that in the comments as well. If you had a different take on this part of the book, a different part in this book, or a different book entirely that you think should be featured right here on the Booksters Club, I would also love to hear that in the comments. Let me know. And if you found value in this video and you liked it, thanks for clicking that like button if you did. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell if you're new, because I post new videos just like this every single day. See you tomorrow, Booksters. So the first fear, don't say so. I don't like this version as much as the first version was so much better. Oh my gosh. Make sure, tell yourself, make sure you record. Okay. Get to know the real you. Oops. Okay, let's do that again. Okay, the who you. Get to know the who you. Okay. Afraid of being hurt. Flaws that you have. And no, let's talk about that one in the rejection. Yeah. Another fear is the fear. So another fear. It's not the best feeling in the whole world. No. Okay.